So a while ago, I was visiting my cousin who just come back from college. To give little context, he studied in filmmaking, so in comparison, he is obviously more knowledgeable than I am in the filmmaking field. And we had a fun conversation. So in the middle of it, I just dropped a bombshell. I told him that I'm planning to watch Sonic 3 in theater in December and asked if he would come and join too. He refuses and starts putting on his Ace Attorney attire and goes, Ki, film-film koyo ngene aja bandelok. Iki mung ngentek-ngentekno waktumu wae. Wong-wong asal tok sing delok. Basically, my cousin is just no longer interested in watching franchise movies or anything that has to do with being a franchise, and I'll be following his points. So just from his experience of watching those franchise movies before, it's either flooded with just cameos or CGI spectacle without an actual plot, or having one but gets overshadowed by the cameos or spectacle. And of course, I was a bit shocked. I mean, this is coming from someone who studied filmmaking. So the whole point being made here is that it's an obvious case of movie studios gotten lazy, then starts hiring incompetent people or interfering the projects or refusing to pay the incompetent people they hired, and everyone who has worked so hard on good movies that only gets butchered by studios for no reason, that caused a mass strike by the very people who starts to despise these movie studios, which led to shitty movies like this, and then the cycle starts all over again. Just like Macklemore said it best. History been repeating, and those franchises is the gateway to the rabbit hole. It's one of the example. So knowing that elongated video game are monologue, let's talk about a similar case. The recent live-action How to Train Your Dragon trailer that took the internet by storm, and hey, let's see the people's reaction to it.
It was more than enough to convince me to buy a ticket for this film. I love what I just saw.
You know when you watch a thing and you're like live action and then you're like, oh God, is it gonna suck?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how you feel, but this one is not gonna suck.
There's a bunch of live action versions of animated films that'd be super cool to see the more I think about it. Like, oh, it'd be cool to see that world brought to life, or this world brought to life. But when I think about it, if it's just the exact same movie I already saw, hitting the thing, like, telling me the same character arc, that's where I fall out of interest.
Why, man? Why do you have a problem with it, man? So How to Train Your Dragon was originally a novel written by Cressida Cowell that later adapted into the popular animated movie franchise made up of 3 movies. Even though I never watched the third How to Train Your Dragon, the previous 2 movies were gold. I mean, everyone considers it the best animated story to have ever existed in this decade. Basically, I have huge appreciation for the franchise. But then, 2 or 3 videos talking about the state of Hollywood later, we were hit with the live-action How to Train Your Dragon trailer. Now in the case of doing an adaptation like live-action adaptation, animated adaptation, the key rule of making a good adaptation, and I can't believe I've said this over and over again, have you ever heard of the definition of insanity? Yeah, shut up you bully. The key rule of making a good adaptation is to have a coherent story. Who's the character we're following? What's his or her goal? What are the obstacles? Which events are crucial to understand the problem? And most importantly, that is a book, a story to tell. That is a game, an adventure you can play. That is an animation, a land full of imagination. But this is a film, a story with the length of around 100 minutes. Meaning when, let's say, you're adapting a book into a live action, and once you start hacking out chunks of the source story, the whole narrative changes. In short, you need to know how to write a good story on your own. Do not just copy and paste from the source material. Be creative on how to overcome such issue. And that is exactly the case with How to Train Your Dragon. You just copy and paste the exact same set design from the environment to clothing, the dragon is the exact same from the source material, the character's appearance is also the same, the story based from the trailer is definitely no different, so what's the point of me watching the live action adaptation when it's just the same thing as the original movie? Look at other actually good live-action adaptations. Detective Pikachu sure does have the same monster design, but what makes them different is that the detail from the classic cartoon and live-action are way different, and these Pokemons are only used as a setting for the world. The main core of the movie is the story, which is good because it fits the rules I've previously mentioned, and guess what? It's also completely original. The Last of Us series is that tweaks the character dynamics which completely changed the tone from the extremely depressing vibe of the game to a semi-sad and happy vibe on the series thanks to the element of the character Ellie and Joel who tries to enlighten the situation whenever shit hits the fan. The screenwriter also took the time to expand the world to see different perspectives that we never see from the game. Arcane is literally what if a toxic Lovecraft/fighting game turned into a slow-paced fantasy espionage made for adults. The moment you copy and paste from media A to media B, everything falls apart. Five Nights at Freddy's looks like a compilation of dreaming and scary sequences sewed together by a story that completely mediates its goal halfway through. Avatar: The Last Airbender is just one-on-one cartoon to live action, with the only difference is that the character dynamics were simplified to be in a more incoherent way because it misses the details, which leads to characters making stupid decisions throughout the season. And what makes matters worse is that the reason why How to Train Your Dragon become a live action is because of money. Speaking of money, people from this very day are still pissed at Disney because they keep adapting cartoons to live action without any changes. But why though? To this day, why they still doing it even though the people have been very loud and clear that they won't watch this? I mean, the latest Snow White movie has gotten a fair amount of backlash that the original 7 people of color that I've talked previously had to be written out and replaced with actual dwarfs, although they were using CGI. But why? Why repetition? Why reusing the same story? Well, the truth we bear witness. Sorry, I was heavily addicted to that music. So the reason is more complicated than you think. But to condense it, I'm gonna show you a clip from I Do Know Nothing that helps you give the perspective, and I'll simplify his following point.
For the last few years, Disney has listened to fans and tried to make as many original animated movies for years. But the thing is that nobody went to go see them. Nobody went to go support these original ideas. For example, in the 2000s alone, we had movies come out like Onward, which critically performed well and had a $200 million budget and bombed at the box office by only making $142 million. Same thing with Soul. Like, that movie won an Oscar but made $122 million on a $150 million budget. Like 2021, where movies like Raya and the Last Dragon came out with a budget of $100 million and made only $130 million at the box office. We also got Luca, which bombed, Encanto bombed, Turning Red bombed, Strange World bombed, and Elemental, which just barely scraped making a profit.
Basically, Disney and a bunch of other movie studios has tried to make original movies, but those unfortunately flop in the box office because we just don't watch them. I mean, me personally, I only come to theater twice a year. Back in 2023, the only movie I watched in theater was Transformers: Rise of the Beast and then Oppenheimer. The redemption arc is unbelievable. Even though I took the clip from a very short video, he talked a lot deeper. What I showed you is just a glimpse of it. I'll leave the link to the video in the description and go watch it after this one. Now, I can see people would go, but these original movies aren't even good. Which is, buddy, you don't watch the movie and you sure don't know what's in the movie. I watched Raya and the Last Dragon, which is the only Disney original movie I watched from the past 5 years, and that shit's bang. Like, I'm not being emotional and ignorant here. Go watch the movie for yourself and you'll see that I'm right. Back to the point, it really is a confusing situation because I can only assume from my experience that most of you also don't have the time to go to theater every month. I mean, going to theater is supposed to be a grand experience. We go there expecting simply a good story. I mean, you don't go to theater and watch something you know is just slop like Shadow 3. Like, no normal person does that unless you are. You go there to be sure that what you're witnessing is one of the best experiences of your life. But since there are so many other good movies, it kinda pulled the attention away from the Disney movies I Do Know Nothing mentioned. And from the bigger picture, all of this is because the movie industry is one big traffic. They, i.e. the movie studios, are racing by churning out supposed good story one after another to see which one gets the most attention and gets the most profits. Some studios are taking the safe route by making adaptations or sequels of their IPs, which has been successful before. Some studios are taking that risk and tries to make original story. This is the natural state of Hollywood. Things like this tend to happen. And I'm not trying to make you feel apathetic, but I'm here to give you the warning, to give you a lesson that this should not happen. And to anyone who wants to be a writer or producer who just a newbie in storytelling, this is bad. How to Train Your Dragon, Snow White, and Moana is bad, is evil. Alright, thank you for your time. See you later.